Brant Brown, who the Mariners brought in the offseason, and we highlighted that it was so unusual that the Mariners brought a coach from outside their organization onto the big league staff. He was the offensive coordinator. He was a bench coach. He helped with game planning and in-game adjustments, and he was relieved of his duties on Friday. Not utterly shocking, Lyle.
I was shocked at first. I think we were both shocked at first to see the news. No,
I'll say I was in a sense that the Mariners don't normally make decisions like this, but something needed to change. Like we had just watched that Astro series and Spencer Arrighetti dominate the lineup, just dominate again. And they had already tried. Scott Service had mentioned they tried different approaches with messaging and stuff earlier in that week while Brant Brown was still employed, but like they did have to change something, right? In the reaction I made for our social media accounts, I did say it was shocking because in terms of in-season coaching changes, the last one the Mariners franchise made was when they fired Howard Johnson in 2015 and hired Edgar Martinez. That was it. That was a while ago, Lyle. It was 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. They did that. That was pre-Jerry DePoto regime. And Jerry's production on his roster hasn't always been good enough where people were like, oh, fire this, fire this, fire this. Like it could have happened sometime, but it hadn't until now. So I don't know if it was the fact it was almost too much information for the players. There's an interesting nugget from Daniel Kramer that we'll get into here in a second, which highlights maybe a little bit more of this, whether it was too much information for the players, maybe a little bit of over coaching, where they having a position you maybe didn't need to help out this offense. But overall, Lyle, when you have an offense that to that point was 30th in strikeout rate, 22nd in WRC plus, 24th in weighted on-base average, 24th in slugging, 27th in on-base percentage, something had to change.
You couldn't roll with that all year. You cannot put that much stress on your rotation all season long with an offense full of unbelievable talent just not carrying their weight. Yes, something had to change. And sometimes firing a hitting coach is a bit of a scapegoat move. Will that end up being the case with the Mariners? We don't know. We're going to have to see what the offense looks like in the next 2 to 3 months or the rest of the year and find out. But you're right that something had to change. And even though you heard Mitch Haniger talk about, look, this isn't all on Brant Brown. He did his job. We as players have to do more. Even though there were players sticking up for him, they needed something to either ignite a fire under the players' backside, or they either needed to light a fire or they needed a change in philosophy. Maybe they feel like doing this does both. We're going to have to wait and see.
I don't know if the philosophy changes, but maybe the messaging does. So Daniel Kramer of MLB.com pointed out that Brown was known for his quote-unquote unorthodox methods of messaging to players, which made him a coveted hire. But those messages, obviously, were not landing well. I don't know if that's overcomplication. I know he presented a lot of numbers to players pregame when scouting and attacking starting pitchers, and obviously didn't work. But we've seen the results against starting pitchers. They have gotten shredded by average starting pitchers this season. Maybe they're overthinking, maybe not. But in the end, when you have this many proven hitters who are hitting so far below what they have done in their past, something is not resonating in there, and something needs to either simplify or change. And the Brant Brown decision was that. So the other two hitting coaches, Jarrett DeHart and Tommy Joseph, will stay. They'll take on increased roles, and Scott Service mentioned they are going to make a hire in-house to add the extra set of hands that Brown leaves behind on this coaching staff. So now it's up to the Mariners players, I would say, for this season. So the coaching change has been made. But you and I both know they're not going to make another in-season coaching change. I'm surprised they made an in-season coaching change, even though it had to happen. Just thinking of how do things actually change? Does it actually solve anything changing a baseball coach in the middle of the season after you've spent all offseason trying to implement this? Perhaps. We'll see. So Tommy Joseph and Jarrett DeHart will keep their jobs. But now, again, it's on the players to take this new messaging and run with it and improve better offensively.
Yeah, change in philosophy is not the right word because it's still mostly the same hitting group. DeHart's been there forever. Yeah, you said Tommy Joseph is still there. So yeah, change in philosophy is not the right word, but yes, a coaching change and probably a bit of a messaging change. Because let's add one thing to what Daniel Kramer reported too. Also in that blurb, he said some of Brown's ideas in pregame meetings became too complex for the players. I think that's an important line. I think that means that maybe players felt like there was just too much information being thrown at them that was taking away from just, all right, go attack, go grip it and rip it. Like, you need a balance. You've got to have a plan going up there, but you can't have as big of analytics and sabermetrics people as the two of us are. You can't go up there trying to solve an equation in your head and also try and hit the baseball. That's not going to work. So maybe they felt like they needed a little bit more of a balance.
Ryan Davis said it best. When you step in the box, all that stuff goes out the window. You just got to compete. You got to stay alive. And that's why at times I think the Mariners have done better against relief arms than they have against starters. Relievers come in, you have less of a, I guess, predetermined thought process against that guy. Well, starters you're planning for most of the time. So that could be one thing. It could be quality of pitcher as well. And to people pointing at the series against the Angels, we did joke at the beginning that they got fixed. It is kind of hard to make an assumption based off of 3 games against the Angels, which happen to be their best offensive series of the season. Coincidentally, best strikeout series of the season. Coincidentally, so far. It is funny how that all works out. Think about this. Again, in that series against the Angels, first time all season they had scored 5 or more runs in 3 straight. All season. We're a third of the way through the season. First time all year they scored 5 runs in 3 straight. They struck out just 18 times in that series against the Angels. That's the fewest strikeouts in a 3-game stretch they'd had this season. And that was after they had a almost record-setting strikeout pace against the Astros. Just the series before.
Do you think it's going to be hard to judge the Mariners offense in the next few weeks? Because we talked about this on the live stream on Sunday, which if you guys don't know, come hang out with us on Sunday nights, 7 p.m. on Instagram, YouTube. We take all your guys' questions, basically just hang out and go live. This is the Mariners schedule in June, or at least some of it. They just played the Angels this past weekend. They have the A's for 3. They also have the White Sox at home for 4. They have the Rangers for 3, a little bit tougher, but they're going to see them at home. And the Rangers are still under 500. They'll have a tougher series against the Royals this week, too. But then they also have the Marlins. And then they finish with the Twins and the Rays. All right, I jumbled that a bit together. The point with that being, the Mariners this month see the Angels, the A's, the White Sox, and the Marlins. So they should jump on all those teams. So I would say the best way you can judge what this offense is currently looking like and where they currently sit in terms of improvement will be best judged by some of the tougher teams they play. Let's see what they look like against the Royals. See what they look like against the Guardians. Let's see what they look like against the Rays, even the Rangers. I think that'll be the best judging meter.
Yeah, we might have to wait until next month in July. I think like July overall is a good offensive month in baseball. But yeah, it's just like, especially like the end of next week would have been a good one. You get 2 solid weeks post Brant Brown. Like, what does it look like? Even if it's a small sample, are they being more aggressive? Are they walking more? Are they swinging at better pitches? Is the whiff rate down? All these things. But I'm like, it's the A's and the White Sox.
Yeah.
So that I can't do that. And again, it's like the watching the Angels this weekend. It's like, that is not a Major League Baseball team. So even if they've done all of these great things, I really, unfortunately, don't think we can draw any assumptions from this.
Well, and I will say, again, I hate to go glass half empty here, but Griffin Canning had a pretty good month of May. I know his overall numbers for the year are not good. He had a good month of May, and the Mariners still struggled against them. They had some runs late off the bullpen, and they had one Luke Raley solo home run that put them out to a 1-0 lead. Maybe the best thing we can do is, you know what? Okay, thinking more about this, here's what we should all do. Maybe we'll have to circle back to this at the end of the month. Let's judge what the Mariners offense looks like from June 14th until the end of the month. Because yes, they play the Marlins in that stretch, but in that time period, they have the Rangers, the Guardians, the Rays, and the Twins. Let's judge what the offense looks like as a whole in what will be about a 2 to 2.5 week stretch in that time. That'll give us a better idea.
And I'm sure many of you remember what the Twins and the Guardians pitching staffs did to this offense earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So, will this ignite a fire? Hopefully. We're going to have to wait and see. We're going to need a much bigger sample size than 3 games at home against the Angels. But you play who you play, and the Mariners sweeping the Angels, positive.